Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan, and Slaanesh sucks right now. And not in a good way. Wait, let me just provide some context. So Slaanesh obviously has a lot of stuff that's working, a lot of unique mechanics, everything works as intended and so on, but I'm talking more in terms of battles, whether this is multiplayer or even battles in a single player campaign, which is what I mostly focus on. There's a few glaring problems with the Slaaneshi roster, some of which can be fixed with a patch, hopefully one day soon, as we've already had a patch and that fixed nothing. And something that is missing from the roster to actually give some sort of armor to the Slaaneshi faction. Keep in mind, while armor is not very common with the demons of Slaanesh, there are warriors of Slaanesh that wear heavy armor, and it's something that Slaanesh is very much lacking. A lot of people have been saying it over and over since they got access to the game. There's also that one issue with the tech tree, but that's been reported enough that I'm sure that Creative Assembly are looking into it, or at least I very much hope. But with all that being said, let's look at the Seducers of Slaanesh, the only playable Slaaneshi faction at the moment, and let's see what could be improved and what could be fixed. This is more of an open letter to Creative Assembly because, yeah, I've played this faction a lot and there are some issues. So let's talk about what needs to be fixed right now, and that's pretty much just chariots. Everything else, barring that one issue with tech, is working as intended, and for some reason only the chariots of Slaanesh seem to be affected, where they just do no damage. In fact, they're mostly there just to push around enemies, and, well, that's disappointing for a number of reasons. First up, well, that's not how chariots are supposed to work, they're supposed to do damage. Second up, these are chariots with massive razor blades attached to them, so why aren't they doing damage? So why is this such a big issue? Well, chariots focus around speed, of course, and the Slaanesh faction focuses around speed. If you don't have anything that can do damage, it's pretty much pointless. And yeah, chariots are usually quite good when it comes to Total War. At least it's been in Warhammer 2 lately. Not only that, but it's a big chunk of Slaanesh's roster which is not working as intended. This is a faction that's supposed to focus heavily on chariots. This is the Seeker Chariot, the Hellflayer, and of course the Exalted Seeker Chariot. Now the Exalted Seeker is kind of working, but even then, it's still a big chunk of the roster. And sure, you can more or less avoid them because you do have access to Fiends, Seekers, and Heart Seekers, and obviously Hellstriders, but those are far more squishier, whereas a Chariot does have some basic armor. It's much less in terms of unit entities, so it can actually just throw itself through different enemy positions, and the idea is to go through them, do damage, get out of the way, cycle charge, and so on. It's still very much easy to do this with all the other units listed before, but the fact is that it's easier to do this with Chariots, as that's what Chariots are intended for. Let's also keep note that many minor and major settlements have a lot of small corridors too, which is more favorable to a chariot than it is to a massive unit of seekers. It becomes a massive issue, and we're going to talk about this a little bit further because there's ways that this could be improved. Sieges are a massive issue when it comes to Slaanesh right now. Keep in mind that this was always going to be the case if they were going to focus on a monogod playthrough, which they did, as, yeah, Slaanesh doesn't focus on sieges, it focuses on speed. You're much better in an open battle than you are anywhere else. With very weak low-tier marauders or just very squishy demonettes, you're not going to have a good time taking over enemy walls and so on. While the demonettes themselves are quite good, and even the marauders are, they're going to pale in comparison to, say, for example, Warriors of Khorne, Plague Bearers of Nurgle, and even having issues against the Tzeentchian forces, because before you can get to the walls, they've probably shot you down. You're quite weak, and that's what's going to happen. The same goes for minor settlements, and I'm repeating this because it needs to be stressed out. Slaanesh cannot really attack a minor settlement without getting too damaged. In most cases, you're kind of bogged down in entrances as they wait for you, and yeah, if a Slaanesh faction can't charge into an enemy, especially through the flank and the rear, because, devastating flanker, well, your army's not going to do its proper damage output, is it? And I'm not just talking early game with, say, for example, a lot of demonettes and marauders. In fact, you're probably better off with them when it starts off with minor settlements, but I'm talking about mid-game and late game too. Sure, you do have access to, say, for example, the Keepers of Secrets, the Soul Grinders, and so on, but depending on the campaign, you're not going to be able to afford full armies of them, are you? And they can get a little squishy. Keep in mind that, yes, they have no armor. They are practically wearing bikinis. Get stuck in with some anti-large and, well, you're screwed, which is a bit of a shame. Look, Slaanesh is my favourite Chaos God. I've been waiting for this faction a long time. I've already completed a number of campaigns with Slaanesh, but there are things that can be improved, so let's talk about that. And keep in mind that a lot of the issues is from the rather lackluster roster. The roster for Slaanesh is so focused on variants that it doesn't really have too much unique stuff, so let's just jump right into the future, hopefully through the form of DLC. FLC also works too, but you know how Creative Assembly can be. But the main reason I'm talking about this is because, yeah, we're lacking some basic frontline infantry to hold down the enemy so we can get around them. The Marauders and the Demonettes will eventually start to either disintegrate or break, mainly because of the following. The Marauders themselves are a frontline unit, but they can die very, very quickly. Again, no armor, they're basically just very low tier chaff, and that's more or less what they're there for. Demonettes, on the other hand, are not meant to be a frontline unit, they're supposed to be a flanker too. They can do decent damage up front and personal, but it's not what they're there for. So what does Slaanesh need? Well, a proper frontline. And how do you get that? Chaos Warriors. It's that simple, because that's what Chaos Warriors are meant for, and that's how the Chaos Warriors of Slaanesh in the tabletop used to work. Now, before anything, this is a hot topic for a lot of people, because a lot of people will start screaming, well, I don't want recolored Chaos Warriors, I want something unique. Yes, I want the same thing as you, but I feel like even recolors just would have helped. At this point, we could have just gotten recolors and have them fixed up. It's something which I know would annoy people, but you see how Slaanesh works right now. There's no front line, it's very weak, you're running around with a lot of squishy stuff, you need some armor. On screen right now is pretty much what we used to do to get some unique Chaos Warriors on the tabletop, which was kit bashing. As you can see here, these are Warriors of Slaanesh, and they look rather different, mainly because the shield was played around a little bit, and obviously the helmet was changed around, and something like that would have just been enough, I think. I think people would have been happy with that, as they look Slaanesh-y enough, and, well, yeah, you know, there weren't really any official models to make mono-god warriors. There was artwork and so on, and why that artwork was never used is beyond me, especially since this game was in development for a decent amount of time, but I'm just trying to find alternatives. I think something on the lines of a baseline Chaos Warrior, then switching out the helmet, switching out the shield, and maybe even replacing the weapons with, of course, a Hell Scourge, and maybe the sword mutations too, and you would already get something rather unique looking with a proper coloring, of course, as they'd still look like Chaos Warriors, but they'd look drastically different with a few different changes. And that would pretty much solve the issue that Slaanesh currently has. We need Chaos Warriors. I'm not talking about the full roster and so on. This is something that I want to talk about, as obviously Andy Hall said in the interview for Lawbeards that they are monogod demon factions with a sprinkle of warriors when needed. Well, the warriors are needed. The warriors are really much needed. The funny thing is we do have some unique Slaaneshi models, which is that of the Mirror Guard, a regiment of renown for the Warriors of Chaos. Why weren't they just recolored? Because essentially a Mirror Guard unit is just a recolored unit. And that would have provided the front line that Slaanesh desperately needs at this point in the game, especially since the Slaaneshi factions are just not doing well whatsoever when paired up against anything else. Don't get me wrong, if we could have units looking in unique ways, I would prefer them looking like this model on screen right now, but Creative Assembly are known to cut corners. A lot of people are saying, well, why did Khorne get unique stuff with the Chaos Warriors, but nobody else did? And that's simple enough. The Skull Crushers are the Chaos Warriors of Khorne, they're just unmounted. It's literally just that. Again, yes, I am complaining, but this is something that the Slaanesh faction needs, and I'm going to be doing similar videos for some of the other factions, as there's a very obvious balance being thrown about there, and some of them are just not doing so well. They're not performing well at all, and they're not going to perform well when the Immortal Empires comes out and so many more factions are brought into the fray. Even with just a basic example here, say when the Immortal Empires comes out, Slaanesh forces are going to be dealing with, say, the High Elves or the Dark Elves. They're going to shoot you right before you get there. You've got no front line to take a bit of damage. They're just going to be able to aim at everything else. Without Chaos Warriors and without working chariots, please fix the chariots as soon as possible, CA, I'm begging you. Things are going to be a bit weak for them, and it's a few other Chaos factions which are going to feel the same thing, but I feel that Slaanesh is the weakest by far. Yes, it's a lore thing where the Slaaneshi factions are weaker, but at this point, even I'm saying gameplay over lore. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below, if there's any other issues, especially with Slaanesh, that you'd like to point out. I'm going to be doing a detailed report to Creative Assembly and just highlighting all my issues with the faction. Hopefully they'll be able to look at it. I know they're fixing some other issues which right now are more important, let's be very, very honest. But if we can throw any information their way to make sure that they are aware of it, it would probably be for the best. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel's been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.